Welcome back. You're watching a CNBC TV 18 special, and we are in conversation with Shobana Kamineni, the new CII president.
You know, one problem also with jobs, and in fact even the Labour Bureau reports recently have pointed that out, is about how many of the jobs are becoming very short-term in nature. So when you look at manufacturing, I track the auto sector very closely, and what's happening there is that when demand picks up, you could get a lot of contract workers, and when demand sort of reduces, you get rid of them. And oftentimes industry hides behind archaic labour laws, saying, firing workers is very, very difficult. Point taken. But clearly, when you look at the overall employment numbers, and these are some big companies, Shobana, where 70% of the overall workforce is contract-based. So when you're talking about codes within CII, could you perhaps also look at, codes specifically meant to rationalize contract versus permanent workers? Could that be? I'm also thinking aloud with you. Could that be one of the areas that we may expect you to
I'm not
up?
the expert in this, but what I do appreciate is that the government actually have brought almost, there was something like 400 or 40 codes.
That's right.
They've made it into four
labour codes.
They've made it into 4 labour codes, and I think that the industry was consulted in that.
Right.
They didn't do it apart from that, number one. Number two is that a lot of industries were disincentivized to grow. So when you were in Maharashtra, for instance, when you went from 100 to 300 or crossed 100, you could not. If you fire, you have to get government permission. They've removed that. So I think governments, when they start understanding the nature of the way industry works, we cannot be limited. We need to be able to understand, because at the end of the day, it's productivity and it's cost per product. If so be it. If they need to do that, but at the end of the day, if they're creating good labor, which is earning well, and the auto sector pays fantastically with this. So I think that there's a balance. So I don't have a complete view about it, but the important thing is that we have to understand both sides. Government has done this. They're working towards, rationalizing the codes state by state. People are working towards it. And I think that'll be healthy.
Somebody very famously said you have, 300, 400 labour laws, and oftentimes some work in cross purposes. So you cannot follow all 300 of them without actually breaking a couple of those laws. But you also mentioned the lower participation of women in the labour force. And McKinsey has come out with this report, and the direct economic benefits that would bring. How do we do that? How do we incentivize companies to hire more labor? Let me make it more specific.
So it's also in terms of which companies. I used to sit on the advisory of Cisco, and so globally what they saw was that they were not paying them equally. And CII started iWin, and I think they're socializing that women should not be paid differentially. These are women in good jobs throughout, So one is pay parity. That's an immediate story. The second one is bringing more women into the workforce. So we have to understand the nuances of that. The maternity law was a good one, that it allowed women to stay at home, and not because many of them were dropping off.
Because some said, for instance, Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, that it may actually work against them, because then companies may actually be disincentivized to hire women of a certain age group. And Kiran is on record, but you don't feel that's going to be
that's so politically incorrect. I cannot talk that. It's unfair. And I come from an industry that I need more women than men in hospitals with the nurses and all that. So we'll work towards it. The only thing is I would temper it is the IT jobs. Let them work from home. Put the connection. So many of them can work from home all over the world. So we can find workarounds with that will equalize. Because if you see, whether it's retail, whether it's any one of the service industry, women are actually, they bring in more productivity. And then the way they work. So look at it from the actual characteristics.
But from a policy standpoint, do we need more apart from the maternity act that has now been passed?
No, I think it needs mindset.
So therefore it's more internal within the industry and not so much of the government.
Yeah, form industry, it's where you train, how you're doing it. Now if you see medical colleges, there are more women than men. Engineering colleges. So this shift is happening in the middle class. But what I'm more concerned about is how can I push the needle below? And that will change social behaviors. So this is the project that we're trying to work on, to actually change it in areas, you know, that it's important, because then women, you're changing society. And I think it's not just about jobs.
Okay. A few last points then, Shobana. You know, there seems to be a lot of price control regime coming back again as far as pharmaceutical industry is concerned. You know, and every time there is the mention of price control, and rightly, wrongly, whatever, industry does get perturbed. Are you worried with the kind of trend? And also yesterday, you know, you had RSS's economic wing. They have written alleging that Niti Aayog and government departments are colluding with these global pharma giants. Does that somewhere, you know, kind of, you know, on one hand the government is trying to do good work through reforms. On the other hand, do you think, you know, incidents like these perhaps distract us, and does that worry industry? Be honest, Shobana.
Yeah, it does worry industry. Why won't it? Because industry is multinationals, industry is Indian companies, and what we need to see is that you can't, while we understand the challenges, and I want to be only healthcare specific, I'm not talking about any other industry. Fundamental right for Indians is to get healthcare. But they also have a fundamental right to get the best quality health care. So while these policies might be working on one, I'm not convinced that it fulfills the criteria of two.
Of quality as well. Yeah,
and especially in the long run, because in our field, obsolescence happens once a year. You know, and so that's how we have to see, you know, where we can push the needle, how. And India has the opportunity to work for a greying world. India has an opportunity to, it already is the largest supplier of generics for the world. 65% come from India. I think these are things we should celebrate. And then so financial access, you can use other mechanisms. Universal health insurance. I'm waiting for the government to do that. The offtake of health insurance in India is the fastest growing in the world. So there are other mechanisms. So affordable health, quality health.
So it worries you, I mean, the regulatory overreach that we may have seen from NPPA, especially when it comes to price control?
Maybe short term it's required. But long term, the realization.
You're playing turncoat. You're saying
but they've done it. What am I supposed to say? They did it. Okay. So,
but that's
I'm
what
not
I'm
going
saying.
to say.
I mean,
so at the end of the day, I think that they will realize that everything is important, and that's what we will. We'll continue to work towards it because that's our job. That's our job, because we're not going anywhere. We're in India. I want to build more hospitals. I want to help more sick people. And I require good quality to do that.
In conclusion then, you're taking charge at a time when there are these global headwinds. France goes into elections, you know, there'll be elections in Germany, there'll be elections in, you know, in Great Britain, and the protectionist rhetoric is becoming more and more pronounced. The risks for India, especially when we are trying to integrate with the rest of the world through a supply chain, through a Make in India campaign, how worried is industry at this point?
You know, at the risk of sounding psychofaddish, we have to see on a leadership basis. Again, in companies we look at leaders. We are so lucky to get a strong leader. He'll take tough decisions and we have to live by it, but at least, you know, it's there to take those decisions, and we're in better shape than many other countries. So Brexit will come, Brexit will go.
But those decisions are not in the hands of the strong leader that you're talking about.
No, but the thing is, the way they engage. I had 4 visits from people in England to say that nothing has changed with India. Please work with us. Everyone is doing that, and we'll find. I think when the Prime Minister goes to America, he'll probably charm Trump, and it'll be business as usual.
Shobana, thank you very, very much. Lovely speaking with you.
Thank you.